Alright, give me 5 seconds.
Alright, it's been 5 seconds.
It has been 5 seconds. Good evening, afternoon, whatever it is. Late night, of course. That's why we call the show Late Night IMBA Discussions for everybody watching. If I have been having some trouble with my stream a little bit lately, of course, Australia Internet. If you're not happy with the quality of the stream, please just say so. I'll ignore your comment, and then I'll direct you to go to my YouTube page where I am recording. I am actually recording the show locally now, and I'm going to put it in a little bit higher quality than last time, so you can actually see things a little bit better. So that'll be up.
Your complaints directly to the Queen of England.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just direct it to the Queen of England. She knows all this shit about Starcraft. Anyway, as I was saying, welcome to the show. We're going to be this is late night IMBA discussions where we talk about all sorts of things that are imbalanced and ridiculous, namely things to do with Zerg and Terran. There's not much in Protoss that's imbalanced at all.
Nothing at all, sir.
Nothing at all.
Yeah.
It's a gentleman's race.
It is. It's the gentleman's race. That's why we stand back with lasers and say, you know what, I'm going to shoot you from afar. But yeah, of course, joining us as always are our stalwart additional components to the show. We've got Mr. MLG. I don't know, man. We got MLG
Our
Alberta.
accessories of the show.
That's right.
Nice in the
That's right. It's like the Iron Chefs of the show, and I'm Chairman Karga. We have MLG Alberta. How you doing?
Very good, sir. How about yourself?
Good, good. What's been going on lately?
Not a whole lot, man. I'm back on a little bit of a League of Legends binge.
I don't
I'm
know
getting
about that.
bored smashing all these Zergs trying to roach all in me, so
Oh, really?
playing some League of Legends. Yeah.
Okay.
And actually, for the last month, I've been playing Zerg mostly, so that's fun. It's
Okay.
been fun.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Pressing S and R a lot. That's how you've been
Hey,
rolling.
yeah.
That's
I've been playing Zerg for a month. That's why I went to League of Legends so we can play a slightly harder game.
righto. And of course, we have Wigan, who is over there in the Terran-colored suit. How you doing?
Yeah. I got 2 introductions. Deal with it.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. What do you mean?
I think you introduced me and then introduced Gale and then just reintroduced me.
No, I didn't.
Pretty
Mm.
sure.
No, I didn't.
Don't think
It's okay though.
You guys have been playing too.
I think I deserve 2 introductions.
You've been playing too much League of Legends. That's what the problem is, and it's just gone to your brain,
Well, that's
and it's all
just
messed
true,
up.
Actually,
Yeah, I
um.
hate that.
it's so. Oh god. All right.
Alright, so tonight we are going to be talking about Mech in TvP. Of course, I tried to get Artosis on the show, but he wasn't available. He was too busy trying to figure out how to make Mech TvP actually work. So what we're going to do is actually have a look at the replay pack that was just submitted, I think it was just two or 3 days ago, from Last Shadow, who of course is a pretty high-level player. I mean, he's over in Korea beating Code S and Code A people. I mean, that's slightly higher level. That is on Team Liquid. I think I've got I've got a link for it around about here. I'll just put it in the chat, and I'll put it in the description on the video. You can check that out right there. He's done a lot of things. There's 82 replays in that pack. If you're a Terran, you should probably really check it out. There's a lot of Mech in there as well, including Mech against Zerg as well. But we're going to focus on TvP, and of course we're glad to have Wigan back after last week when he was living in the Stone Age where they don't have power. Yeah, hopefully he'll be able to add some Terran insight, unlike last week where we were kind of guessing what we were doing, weren't we?
This is actually just right up my alley because I'm a bit of a mech connoisseur when it comes to especially TvP. I really enjoy playing. Well, I can't say I enjoy playing mech, but I like challenging myself by playing mech.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so I can actually just talk for days.
And I have made Dave yell about how Mech is bullshit against Protoss quite a few times, so like I'm excited to look forward to Tails' play and kind of pick it apart a little bit.
Yeah, so we're going to jump into Last Shadow versus Tails, which is it's like the second replay in the pack. If you guys ready to rumble?
Daybreak game, right?
Yes, Daybreak.
Okay.
I am extremely ready for this.
I'm 0 and faster.
Okay, okay. All right, let's do this in 3, 2, 1, go.
Count it down the normal way.
Did I?
Yeah.
Oh.
You go 1, 2, 3.
Oh, okay. I didn't even realize. Starting in the blue, down in the bottom left-hand side of everyone's favorite ladder map, Daybreak, is Last Shadow. Got the crazy little name, AJTLS Shield here. I'm not sure if he's stolen someone's account or not, but either way, he is then going to be up in the top right against MVP's Tails. Of course, one of the really good Protoss streamers. If you're a Protoss player, you really should watch his stream. He's very creative. Naniwa is a big fan of his stream. I think it says a lot when you are a Protoss player and then another high quality Protoss player watches you stream. So he's definitely worth having a look at. But yeah, so just firstly, guys, Omerta, just on Daybreak, what do you think for just this matchup in general, not specifically on how to play the matchup, just the matchup?
I think it's extremely Protoss favored.
Oh, yeah, it is.
The 3 bases are pretty easy to defend, and they're the way I watch Parting play it, and his PvT is very good. He hits like 5 or 6 observers and just covers the entire map with observers. Like, has all 3 of the main paths to his base covered with an observer. He's got an observer like to the left side of his main if he were in Tails' position. So look for drops there. He'll have an observer below his 3rd base and an observer somewhere to like the right side of the Terran's main. So he just like gets complete map vision and can get to 5 bases very safely with a lot of good just like map awareness and scouting information. And at that point, it's just very difficult for the Terran army to beat a Protoss army.
Yeah.
Unless you are positioned completely perfectly and land blanket EMPs. If you're playing Bio, that is. I do think that late game Mech, if you get up to like Battlecruiser Ghost, you're in a really, really good position against Protoss. But we'll have to see how Tails goes ahead and approaches it.
Yep.
There is one extra thing about this map in particular that makes it difficult for Terran. I don't know if you've noticed, but lately a lot of the Terran metagame revolves around getting a very fast 3rd if you're going Bio. And on this map specifically, what you'll see in the majority of TvPs is the Terran player will go for this fast build, and normally as a Protoss player, in order to really punish it, you want to do like some sort of really heavy 2-base pressure or just very early 2-base pressure. You can actually punish a fast 3rd on this map from a Terran player without really needing to change your build from a greedy one on your own. Like, you can get a quick 3rd, and just any sort of pylon on, for example, in these positions, the top half of the map can just constantly be sending 2, 3, 4 zealots into that 3rd base. And the Terran player has to position his army well out in front, like almost on the watchtowers or even further out, to be able to do anything to the Protoss player, because he has to go very far away from that 3rd base to pressure a Protoss 3rd or a Protoss 4th.
Yep.
So almost if you watch like any recent TvP on this match on this map, you'll just see a Terran player desperately chasing around 4 or 5 zealots going into his 3rd pretty much the entire game while trying to macro up. So it gets a little rough.
Yeah, it not only the fact that you can just sort of put one up there, you can put multiples up there, and there's all sorts of spots you can put them. Like there's a couple just up in the top section here, just behind the gas at the top 4th, which seemingly a lot of people don't actually find very often. You can put them in these sort of corner spots just around here. There's also, of course, there's also a really good spot if you want to just if you guys want to just jump up to the top 4th base for Shadow. On the sort of just below where you would put the command center, there's this sort of like hologram box thingy next to a circular big fan thingy. There's a lot of thingies on this map. If you sort of spin the camera around, you can actually hide a worker behind there, and it can't be seen unless you spin your camera properly. it's a pretty cute little spot to hide stuff. Of course, in PvZ it can be a little bit interesting to try and do something like that because for some reason overlords can hover over these big hologram things that are around the map, and
Yes.
that's fairly balanced that you can't see them. But yeah, so just speaking of the game itself, we saw Shadow actually put down an engineering bay to block the fast Nexus, which was going to be a 1 gate expand here from Tails, but he had to delay it a tiny bit. But he's still looking quite nice, up at 31 probes at the moment, of course, doing his best. He's got a lot of chrono on that main Nexus. I'm a little bit confused about that. Okay, now he's using it. He's got that on the robotics facility, so he can get out an observer pretty quickly. So, and the opening from Shadow, we've just got those the reacted Hellions, much like a Terran versus Zerg.
Yep, it's something that works pretty well on maps like this that have a very open choke because the Protoss player really can't do anything about like these 3 Hellions running in. Ooh, nice warp in. They're not going to do a super massive amount of damage normally unless the Protoss player makes a pretty big mistake, like he's out on the map or something like that, which he really doesn't need to be. But it gives you a nice scout, and as he came up the ramp, he saw that Twilight Console, which is just going to immediately tell him that there's going to be like a 2-base blink play, and that's actually a very strong build against anything involving siege tanks in a lot of cases.
I don't like it on this map though. Like, you would want, for a blink play, you would want a main that you could just blink into.
Yeah.
Like, you want to be able to harass with your stalkers, and you can't really do that on this map. So
There's only that
Well, you
very
can blink
small
up from
spot.
outside the natural. And can you blink from the third? Can you
No.
get across the
No,
No.
no, you
I'm kind of
can't.
surprised you can't. Actually.
It's not the
There's
days of
always, like,
Scrap
bullshit,
Station.
Like, I'm a Toon Valley. Anyway,
You could blink across on
we can
Scrap
start
Station.
with
That was good fun.
I think this is a good build anyway against a factory opening. It gives you observers in case there's banshees, and it gives you a lot of ability to harass. Like, it's kind of like in Brood War, like pressuring with dragoons. If he snipes these tanks, the game can just end.
Yep.
And if he doesn't snipe the tanks, he can just go up into the main, which is suspected. He does need to do some damage with this. Well, yeah, I mean, they're about even on worker count, which is in favor for the Terran. So he's gonna want to do something. Oh yeah, he's gonna get a tank here.
Gets a
Yeah, that
tank
hurts a lot.
and gets
Weakens
inside.
that army considerably.
Yeah. And getting a few kills here with the Marines. He's sort of blinking ahead straight across to try and hit the tanks, as you said. Nice to try and target down the tanks. He is going to lose a lot of these Stalkers, though.
yeah,
It's
that was a
perhaps
terrible
not the greatest
decision.
idea.
And that's why I don't like this build on this map. That little area right there is the only place you can get into the main, and there's no other real retreat path. Like, think of a map like, try to think of something in the ladder pool. On Core Hall Compound, or not Core Hall Compound, well, that would work too, but I'm thinking Cloud Kingdom. That would be a map where I would really like this opening, because there's a lot of space you can blink into the main and like run around and try and do damage.
Yep.
Well, even then, he sort of overextended into the base a little bit. He could have blinked out easily and like look at the natural right now. If he had another observer there, he'd see the free siege tank. And even then, he's still like a threat. Even though he lost all those stalkers, he's still a threat to move into the base. But that's a good. I like that Raven by Last Shadow. It's like 1 or 2 Ravens is just super useful
Yep.
against any kind of stalker play, and it lets you snipe the observers and things like that.
Yeah. I think that's definitely a big part as well, is taking down that observer so that you can of course cut down the amount of threats. Like when you're talking about sort of that high level strategy in StarCraft 2, you're looking at something which is called the imaginary player as well, which I think Day9 might have referred to it a few times as well, where you have to consider, alright, my imaginary player that I'm playing against could have 7,000 blink stalkers waiting outside. How am I going to stop this from being a real damaging threat? And the best way to do that, of course, is to get rid of his ability to actually get inside the main base. So having that observer off the map is really good for Shadow there. So that's always a good thing
now,
to do.
Shadow is in kind of a bad situation here, though. He's gonna have a really hard time securing a third base, just because he doesn't have a lot of mobility and can't really push out quite this moment. So there's generally 2 ways you play Mech when you're in this kind of situation. You have like 1-1-1 on 2 bases. You either get a third and then power factories, or you power factories and do a 2-base pressure, and then get your third behind that. It looks like since he's already built 2 factories, he's adding a lot of tanks and adding cloaked banshees. He's probably going to do some kind of 2-base pressure before he really attempts to get that third. And I think that's a really good decision.
Yeah.
He has to know that he has to do something about this third base, or he's just going to fall infinitely behind.
Yeah, and that's where that snipe. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
I was going to say, Omerta can definitely talk about what it's like to be ahead on bases against a meching player.
It's good, but I don't like his tech choice. Well, okay, Phoenix. If you're gonna go mass gateway against Mech, you definitely have to go Phoenix, because once they get a good number of siege tanks, even though charge zealots are good, they just will all instantly die. Like if you just charge into a really sieged up position. So I like the choice to go with Phoenixes to try and fly in and pick up the tanks, and then just charge the zealots in when their numbers are cut down. But I really don't like the mass gateway response at all. That's something I used to do a lot, but I think robotics is a lot better. Just getting like 3 robotics and powering out a bunch of immortals and a few colossi. Like the colossi will help deal with the Hellions, and then the immortals can just kind of walk into siege tanks and not take damage. So.
Especially in this kind of situation, the only real danger you can run into by going for like a heavy robo play is a lot of ghosts, like Ghost Mech.
Yep.
And since he should know, well, he keeps sacrificing observers into a Raven for no reason, but he should know that Last Shadow is only on 2 bases, and on 4 guests you can't really afford ghosts.
Yep.
If you're gonna do anything. So even if there is ghosts, there's gonna be very few. So I would much rather see like three robo. This push that's coming out would just absolutely get crushed by that.
Yeah.
Just even if it's just immortals. I mean, you can add Colossi into, they're actually pretty good. But like there's just no way this is gonna work if you're going for robo. And you can kind of make gateway work, but I think there's just no reason to go for it when you have the option to go robo.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that part of dealing with Mech, like the reason that everyone thinks that it will just never work, like properly at a higher level, is just purely because there's so many ways to counter it, and the way so far that Tails is trying to deal with it is only one way, which is just the mass gateway with 7,000 zealots, which is it'll be good early, but not to a full counter-attacking perspective. You won't be able to counter-attack with mass zealots because they'll just get chewed up in a choke point.
Yeah, and if you're going to do this, you need a lot of Archons a little earlier, and you need to be blinking into the main as soon as this army moves out to do damage and force, maybe even force a base race.
Yeah.
This is like just tanks and some Hellions.
Yeah.
And a couple Banshees, which is nice. That's one thing, by the way, meching players, you should always have in your army, just like just a couple Banshees. It lets you pressure bases like that you're not pushing at the time, gives you some map control, and lets you snipe important targets like High Templar and Mortals.
And
I
here we
want
go.
to note that I really this is a big battle. As you can see, the Zealots are just like all instantly dying because he's got so many Hellions and the tanks just eat them all. But the army still, I think, will win because Archons are pretty good units. And honestly, I think that Last Shadow overextended there. I think as soon as he killed that third base, he should have just gone home and just continued to build his siege tank count. Like, there's no reason to continue to push into the natural there when you're finishing up a third command center. Like, if you're going for a 2-base all-in and don't plan to make a command center, I say, yeah, go ahead and continue that push. But if you're expanding behind it, you get a free third base. He didn't take out your army at all. Just go ahead and go home.
Yeah.
And now he's in a pretty awkward position here, where he has to try to hold this third base with a very low siege tank count. And that's when this gateway army does shine. When there's only a couple tanks, there's no way they're going to chew through these zealots in time.
Especially when he was at this sort of front position here, trying to take that third base there. I can understand trying to defend that, but it wasn't established at all, and as you said, there was only like 3 tanks or something like that. If you're going to only have 3 tanks, try and actually get the opposing player to walk up a ramp where, obviously, to quote a magnificent movie, their numbers will count for nothing. So, that I think that was just a really, as you said, he overextended going for the third base. He killed the third base, then tried to building hop his way up into the natural, which was very cute. Which is something that you used to see back in the days of Brood War when you would have the standard mech TvP. But he took it too far. He lost all the tanks in the end, and then just sort of had to come back here and defend with a minor amount of tanks, a minor amount of Hellions as well, and no real sort of way to buffer as well. That. I think that's still a big part of Mech in TvP that also needs to be discovered is using buildings for some buffering. You don't have to have you don't have to have 11 million Hellions buffering your tanks. Put some supply depots, put some eBays down as well, and just sort of let that help out a little bit.
Yeah, that's one way. This was definitely a crisis management thing. He just wasn't prepared for that army to get cleaned up at all, and he just didn't have enough stuff. Like, he had to throw about 30 SUVs into the grinder to hold that. And in all honesty, there's some pretty impressive control to actually just not die in that game. Like, that's a situation where a lot of Terran players will just go ahead and lose the game if they're trying to mech. But the nice thing is, oh my gosh,
4 Hellions. 4 Hellions get into your base, and the game's actually just over.
Well, that wasn't that bad.
Yeah, he didn't
actually
lose too much.
But
that was a +1 armor, man. That was only like 3 probes a die. That was insane.
well, it's just good spread. Hellions shoot so slow that if you have decent spread, you actually don't take too much damage anymore. And he had a pretty low Hellion count. You really want to go in there with like 8 if you want to get anything done. But,
Tails just like has a bunch of probes following his army around right now.
Yeah, that's less than stellar. I was just going to comment that one of the good things about this game was, since he had that 3rd orbital up and he did kill the 3rd of Tails, he is able to sort of stabilize on these 3 bases and not feel too bad about losing those like 30 SCVs or however many he lost.
I mean, look at
Dave,
the income count.
What do you think about the 1 armory, Dave?
I
don't like that.
I think you need. I understand he did that because he was basically doing a 2 base all in.
Okay.
I mean, he took it. I see. Look at all these probes. What are you doing, Tails? How does he not notice this? Oh, God.
Mech's got him flustered.
I guess.
Slowest
I mean, that is
reaction.
one nice thing about Mech, though. Like, you have to play very differently against Mech. It can be very like a lot of the ways you will win it as a meching player is the other player are a little like he'll literally get bored or not know what to do and just attack into you and die.
Yep.
And at a high level, the trick to playing Mech is to force that situation where he has to attack into you. But I don't know. We're not all at a high level, so sometimes you'll just get wins because they walk into your siege lanes.
Yeah. And he's got a Banshee that's harassing down here in the bottom right as well, which it's been a constant thing. Is he's been down there with a Banshee or with a Hellion coming inside and saying, you know, I'm not totally sitting back and turtling and doing some damage here. And as we can see, there aren't that many observers on the map for Tails. He's got 1 observer, which is to me, as you said earlier, Omerta, really surprising to see, just because of how Parting has been doing really well with his, you know, standard sort of 7 or 8 observer style builds, and you know, some of these other guys aren't doing that.
Yeah, and that's kind of a big mistake, especially in this situation, because what you want to be able to do is, once you've traded down against a meching player, you want to be expanding all over the map, because if you kill a handful of tanks, you can't that Terran can no longer attack for a very long time. There's no reason you can't take that 4th, that 5th a lot sooner and force the Terran to sort of force the Terran to basically attack you, and that's what you don't want to have to do as a Terran player.
Yeah,
and Ashado's just done a really good job this whole game of killing so many probes down at there.
You have to SimCity like here, and the 3rd base is actually pretty easily SimCity'd against Hellions.
Exactly.
Like, throw a gateway between where that pylon and assimilator are, and then throw down some more gates, and you're seriously just fine.
That's an important thing to consider against anybody who's building Hellions. Is SimCity will help you so much.
I mean, I really think that losing to a meching player, it's either if you allow them to get like a max Ghost BC army without killing them or having a proper response, or taking too much damage from Hellions. You really should never lose an engage if you have the right army composition and engage properly. You should never really lose. It's just taking this much damage from Hellions, and it's just game ending. Can't come back from it.
Exactly. Like I
And
think
uh,
for some of the other Protoss that may be watching, um, as Wigan pointed out earlier, you really want to be taking a lot of the map because after that, especially if you crush that either the sort of the two base push with the tanks and that early sort of push, if you can crush that, go and take three other bases. It's not like he's going to be attacking for a while, and you may sort of think, well, what if they switch over to bio, which is a lot more mobile? They certainly can do that. It's highly unlikely, but also it takes a while to get to bio. It's not as if you can just run out with, you can't just produce 50 Marines off two bases with one barracks. You have to get obviously the combat shields. You have to get stim. Like I'm pretty sure if we looked at I can't even get to the bloody upgrades because he doesn't have a racks on a tech lab, but it still takes a lot of time to do that. So, and I mean, look, here we go again.
well,
Shadow's doing
it's
more damage.
170 seconds for stim pack,
Oh yeah,
110 for combat shields. And to be perfectly honest, once a Terran player commits to a tech path, he's not going to tech switch.
yep,
You really can't do it. You have to have, like, for example, playing bio. You need to have equivalent or better upgrades than a Protoss player these days. That's why you see so many greedy double engine green babe plays.
yeah,
And you're just never going to get in that situation if you started meching, unless it's like if a marine tank push off two bases and then going into bio, that's different. But this committed to mech, you're not going to see any kind of tech switch. You might see a switch to air, which is a really good decision late game, like Omerta was talking about. Ghost with BC is actually just incredibly good.
yep.
It's
That you
like a
can't.
max Ghost BC army is just one of the hardest things to kill.
You just can't stop that. That's just ridiculous sort of thing to stop. As well as Thor Ghost, which I was about to mention, because look at this Thor count. We've almost got 16 Thors. In fact, we've got 17 because there's a couple that aren't with this army. And now with the tanks, forward siege, you've got the Ghosts here as well to provide some EMPs. Everything the Protoss wants to do will get crushed. If you bring in the charge lots, they'll get EMP'd and then obliterated by the tanks from afar. Oops, wrong screen. That one.
Yeah. This many Thors is a great kill move, and it's a great decision based on what he's seen from Tails. There's really, like, other than a lot of feedbacks and some Immortals, there's not much you can do to punish a high Thor count like this. Once
Yep.
you have, 6, 7, 8 tanks, that's really all the tanks you need. So when you're ahead, if you want to kill somebody, 3 armored Thors, man, that'll really do it. Like, gateway units just cannot fight them efficiently.
Yep.
Nope.
And you bring in some SCVs with that bitch, and nothing is going to die. Like, I think he lost maybe 2 Thors in that whole engagement, and basically traded 150 food for, 2 Thors.
Yeah, you really have to have a high immortal count and some feedback to deal with that many Thors.
Yep.
I don't think Tails built one the entire game, which is a pretty weird decision if you ask me.
Very.
It's the mech game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, So things to take out of that, obviously from my perspective as a Protoss player, if you see this coming and you see that your opponent starting off, just really quickly, seeing the reacted Hellions at the start, is that a guarantee you're going to get mech or get mech?
No, not at all, actually.
Okay.
You can go into bio pretty easily after that, and it's actually a not horribly uncommon build to see just on any map that has a really open natural.
Okay. So
It can, like, a really greedy Protoss expand, they'll have maybe 2 Stalkers when you get there with four Hellions. So you're almost guaranteed to at least get a good scout and probably do a little bit of damage. And a lot of people will actually, like on Tal'Darim, for example, very common to do a reactor Hellion expand into bio.
okay. So for
You can't quite scout just off that.
yeah. So for the Protoss guys, of course, you want to be looking at if you can find that your opponent is getting going mech. Like if you see these multiple factories, like early stages of the game, like 2. I think 2 is a pretty big indicator. Getting 3 is obviously the biggest indicator, and then anything further than that. But what you want to do, as we said a little bit earlier, you can do some things with mixing up your tech. Like it's very difficult for Protoss sometimes to mix tech and try and play what I think is the best way to deal with mech, which is you have to be very tactical with your positioning. So you want to make sure that you get your good feedbacks off on the Thors, on the Ghosts, on that sort of thing. You want to have the Archons in there as well. If you're going to be very cute, you want a Warp Prism with speed with double Immortals in. Drop them on top of the tanks, soak up all the tanks really easily. But once it gets to this point, late game, you need to be actually like 3 or 4 bases ahead to actually have a prayer in hell of actually beating this kind of mech play. So,
not quite that ahead, but if you're actually
well,
on
yeah.
5 bases, you can comfortably defend against.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I also just want to point out the Stargate choice was really good, and I actually think you should go Stargate at least one every time you're against a meching player. The Phoenix offers a ton of utility for your engagements to pick up tanks, but not only that, if a Terran player sees a Stargate, they have to invest in Vikings. They have to start making Vikings, and that really cuts into their supply. And just considering the investment of the Phoenix and how much more utility it brings to fights than the Viking, it's really important to try and get the Terran player to start making Vikings.
Yep. Wigan, your final thoughts on this match and playing it like this?
And just to add to the Stargate thing, I think that's absolutely an excellent thing to add, because not, like Phoenixes do a ton. Dear God, if a Void Ray shows up and you don't have any anti-air, carriers are actually really good against mech, and the mothership is just gorgeous. God forbid you get half your tanks vortexed, you're just instantly going to lose that fight and then the game.
Yeah.
So something to consider. You don't. I can't even imagine a game, like a professional game, where you see that, but it's something that should happen if mech becomes common.
Hell yeah.
And there's 2 questions from Wonder in the chat. Should we?
Yeah, certainly.
He said that Tails was way ahead after the cleanup at the 3rd. How did Last Shadow come back from that? And we kind of mentioned it in the chat briefly, but just in case people can't read it, if they're watching it later or something. What happened was,
I think this big thing, the worker kill tab, shows quite a lot of how he came back.
Basically, yeah. So Tails was on like 60 workers, but he was on 2 bases because the 3rd was killed. And then his counter push, Last Shadow was forced to throw about 30 SCVs in to hold it and save a little bit of his army. So a scenario occurred where Tails had like 60 probes, but only 2 bases, and Last Shadow had like 30 workers, but he was on 3 orbital commands, and they were about even at that point. But then what Tails should have done is secured his 3rd, and then done a little pressure, maybe with Blink Stalkers, things like that, and just kind of forced Last Shadow to split his attention and not really be able to rebuild his army. Instead, he sat back, and while sitting back, managed to lose a shitload of probes, and that just put him way behind, because Last Shadow was able to rebuild his army with no pressure, and was able to just get ahead economically because of like 8 Blue Flame Hellions in the...
Yeah. You guys there? Oh, we got a problem with the call. Alright, give me a tick. Oh no! Yeah, I think we're all lagging on Skype or something. God, this is a fucking terrible program. Alright. Calling you back. Oh no, they're busy. Anyway, Mr. Jun Joe Wong, as you can see, a lot of probes went down here at this space. Oh, there we got you.
Okay. I think Omerta might have lagged out. That's what happened there. But where did I get cut off at?
We're just sort of talking about how he lost to all the Blue Flame Hellion attacks at the 3rd.
Okay, yeah. And then the other question was, what did you think about Templar Tech versus Colossus against Mech? And I think that Robo is way stronger in the mid game. High immortal count is one of the hardest things to deal with as a meching player. It forces a ton of ghosts. It forces Banshees, and especially in this case, Last Shadow was only on um, 4 gas when he had to push. There's just no way he's going to be able to afford Ghosts. So I like Robo specifically, not really Colossus, against Mech a lot better than Templar.
Yep.
And in the next game we have, I think we'll show off why Templar can be really weak, especially against Mech. Yeah, your internet, sir.
Can I jump in on that question too?
Yeah, go for it.
I didn't hear what you said, Dave, but I think robotics is 100% the way to go against Mech.
100% agree with me. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Templar, a Zealot Templar army is like okay until they get a critical mass of siege tanks, and then it just like instantly dies. If they have enough Hellions blocking, you just can't ever fight them. Like whether you're attacking into them or they're attacking into you, you just can't ever fight their army. But with a bunch of Immortals, like if you go up to like 10 plus Immortals, you can seriously just walk into their army and kill it. And what I've been following that up with is a Stargate switch, which I'm actually starting not to like, because then I just sit back and try and max on carrier, and that lets the Terran kind of rebuild his army and catch up. But I think if you go for like a massive Immortal push with a few Charge Zealots, and then power up to like 10 or so gateways, and then just flood gateway reinforcements after you kill his army, I don't think there's like any way that they could stop that.
There really isn't. A lot of honestly, when I Mech, I build so many planetary I try as hard as I can to get to a split map situation, build like 8 planetary fortresses, and then go BCs, because there's just no, if you lose your factory army late game, there's no coming back unless you have like a huge BC, or I'm sorry, a huge planetary fortress buffer. But the one we're looking for it's much further down, and it's on Metropolis. It's a 46-minute game. It's like it's like called TvP versus GM Protoss or something like that.
There it is. Oh, Luxury. Cool.
Yeah, it's Luxury.
Okay.
And this is an example of this is what you want in a Mech game. You want a long game where you can go into something interesting late game.
Yep.
So.
Also, just before I forget it, because I've forgotten it like 6 different times now, if you want to see another Protoss playing, and obviously if you want to see if you want to see another Terran playing live and doing what Wigan has mentioned a couple of times, Ghost Mech, which is that more of a combination where you try and get the ghosts in a little bit quicker so you can counter Robotics army. Go and have a look at Avillo. He still does that quite a bit. He
Vile Illusion also.
And yeah, Vile Illusion as well. Those two guys do a really good job with playing Mech in TvP, and I've watched Avillo do it a few times, and it's just kind of like, I really hope that people don't start doing this more often, because it looks ridiculous. Like, I think his particular style of the build will start out with you just sort of do a standard sort of opening to the natural, and then get 4 Thors before you try and get the 3rd base, obviously for some security. But anyway, we'll deal with that. I might see if I can grab some reps off him about that. But we'll have a look here at this particular match. Whoa, my power just went a bit funny. It's my turn to have my power out. Alright, let's get this started. We're gonna you guys good to go?
Yep.
I'm ready.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, go.
Alright. And just one note on Ghost Mech. When I say Mech, I kind of mean Ghost Mech. You can't Mech without ghosts. You really can't.
Yep.
In that last game, we saw Last Shadow sort of be able to skip out on the ghosts. He was kind of forced to, and then Tails really played into his hands. But late game, you absolutely need EMP, even if it's just for the Zealots. And God forbid there's Immortals out on the field, they need to be EMP'd. Even worse
definitely.
if there's
Multiples,
the Mothership out.
yeah.
It has to be EMP'd. If he gets a spell off, you lose the game. But
that's the other reason I like Colossi too, is because Colossus can help zone out ghosts when it gets to that point. So you don't need to make a lot of Colossi, just like 3 or 4, just to be able to zone Hellions and ghosts is really important.
They really do tear into Hellions pretty fiercely, and they force you to target fire them in a fight too. They just do so much damage.
Yeah, it's
So
another
it's-
unit that
I
forces
like
Vikings to...
Yeah. Well, if you have a high enough tank count, you can get away from it. But they're actually really good against Thors. Thors will never hit them ever.
Yep.
So,
Alright.
so there is that.
Starting out here, we get a little bit of a chat between these guys. I'm not exactly sure what.
Today I learned Last Shadow speaks Korean now.
Yeah, I know. That's what I thought when I first saw these reps, and I was like, really? I didn't know that. Anyway, he's going to be starting out at the top right, or the right-hand side of Metropolis, the map that makes you lag if you, for some reason, lag out on it. I still don't understand that at all. And his opponent across to the left-hand side is Legion Luxury. It is Legion, right?
I think so.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Legion. I don't know. You don't see them too often. Avilo is part of Legion, but anyway. Yeah, but this is like Golem's referring to. He's been there for 6 months. I don't know if you can learn it in 6 months and be that sort of comprehensive with it, but I don't know. Anyway,
He's a talented guy.
he could be. He certainly could be. We're gonna just sort of everything opening very standard here. Probably looks like we're gonna have a 1 gate expand from Luxury, the best and saferest build ever. Except I'm really starting to like the Forge expand against Terrans. That's kind of fun.
Forge expand is very good.
Yeah.
Though I haven't seen any Reactor Hellion against Forge expand. I think you might be able to catch somebody a little bit off guard and sneak some Hellions in every once in a while, but I don't know. I don't know about it. I'd have to look at it a lot of times. And just talking about openings real quick.
Yep.
There's I think 3 ways you can go into Mech. I think Avillo and Vile Illusion especially. If they're gonna go Mech, they almost always open Cloak Banshees on 1 base and then expand behind it. Just because it forces the Protoss player to stay home.
Mm-hmm.
You have that chance of doing damage against greedy builds. Like if against Huck, you might just win the game because he doesn't build a Robo forever.
No.
For example. And it unlocks your tech path really quickly because what they'll do after that is they'll follow up with like a Marine, Thor, Banshee timing attack.
Right.
And that can actually be really strong and can actually win you a lot of games. Then the other way is like Last Shadow's doing, a Reactor Hellion expand and then go sort of like a Marine tank kind of mid-game to be very safe and secure, secure your expansion. And that's it's a good very safe build. It doesn't give you a lot of options to punish a Protoss player. Like you can't really adjust anything you're doing here if you want to go into Mech to do any damage, for example, if he's like really greedy. And then the other way is a no gas expand. It's double gas.
The way we saw Ognis doing it.
And yeah, Ognis will do that against Zerg. I think Marine King has done that a couple times against Protoss, and then you go for a really, really fat 2-base timing with like a lot of Hellions.
Yep.
That's another way you can do it. But if you see gas, for example, from a Terran, and you suspect Mech or he's a player that goes Mech a lot, it's basically it has to be Reactor Hellions or Cloak Banshee. There's really no other way to go with it. While getting gas and expanding.
So,
at least it's any good.
So the thing I was wondering when I've been watching through him playing this, like in the game against Tails and also in this one, of course, we see that Last Shadow got his second gas like quite a while after. He's only just finished building that second gas. Now, obviously, considering that Mech takes up quite a lot of gas, is there a reason why you would delay it that long, or is it purely just because you can't be building, like, 5 tanks at a time at that point? You don't actually need that much gas that early.
Yeah, you just don't have the economy to use that much gas early. Like you're not powering up to your factories yet intentionally because you just won't have any ability to really do anything. It doesn't really get you anything to get gas that early.
Right.
Especially if you're doing a Reactor Hellion and then Marine tank. Like you can make tanks with siege on 1 gas. And that way you can afford to get your, to get your natural at a reasonable time and things like that.
Yep. Okay.
Certain builds you want to get your gas more quickly. Like again, Cloak Banshee, you're obviously getting your second gas, on 1 base pretty early. But you're sort of waiting to the point where you're going to start powering factory units before you start adding additional gas.
Okay.
So like you notice he got his expansion up, and then he quickly kind of went up to 3 gas though. He was 4 harvesters one, and then see, this is what I like. He's going for a fast third off only a barracks and a factory.
It's pretty cool.
And what he's going to do is he's going to use a decently high siege count to secure it. And this is actually something you'll see Korean players have started doing, and they'll go into bio after this.
Because it looks like Mech, or because that's just a good way to move along from this opening?
Honestly, because Protoss 2 base pressures have gotten so good that you kind of need the tanks to secure bases on certain maps, especially on like
Cloud Kingdom.
On Cloud Kingdom, you see Polt and Marine King and a lot of others do this, because what it does is it lets you get a fast third without too much production, so you can very quickly add 2 engineering bays. You get quick medevacs because you already have the factory.
Yep.
And it gives you sort of an interesting push timing where you can use the cliffs on Cloud Kingdom to zone out Protoss units. But what was I talking? Oh yeah, so I do really like the fast third though, because in order to really do anything with Mech, you need 6 gas. Otherwise, you're only building Hellions and tanks forever, and that's basically honestly a 2 base all in at that point. So I like this decision. He's got a decent Marine count. He's got some tanks up. He's going to get the third. And what do we see? How is Protoss reacting to this?
He's already going Templar.
So what have we got?
Already going.
What's the evaluation here, Omerta, on the tech from Luxury?
Dislike it. Very much dislike it. Generally, I don't like to go for gateway pressures PvT anyway. I mean, you can get a win sometimes, but I like to get a fast observer. Like this observer is 2.5 minutes late in my book.
Yeah, that's
I would.
That's way late. He's had to select his tech path before even seeing the factories. I think in this, honestly, he's assuming that Last Shadow is going for that fast third into into quick upgrades, and then Marine Marauder tank. And in that case, this build he's doing is really strong against that, because a 2 base timing with I think he's probably going to go Charge Loud Archon. Yeah, he's going to go Charge Loud Archon. If you don't Sim City against this as a Terran player, perfectly, there's no way you're holding it. He could just crash that third easily, break the Terran. There's just no way you're holding it. You have to have honestly walls of supply depots. But he's had to make this decision because his observer was so late, well before he actually knows that Last Shadow's going Mech.
Yep.
And a high Hellion count just tear this new one.
The other thing about the fast observer is if you scout a Terran doing something greedy, you usually don't have enough time to react to do something to go kill him, but you can take a third Nexus. He could have had this Nexus down 2+ minutes ago if he had gotten an observer up in time to scout it, and that's definitely a good way to deal with Mech. Is getting a lot of expansions, cutting your production for a while, because I kind of wanted to point out a few minutes ago, if you had looked at Last Shadow's army, he had 2 tanks and 7 Marines, and that was it. And so he can't really do anything against you there, so you just take a third Nexus, power up your production, and then go from there.
Last Shadow is just attacking his own command centers. MMA real quick.
MMA style, trying to make Luxury quit, but Luxury is just busting in here. And as you said, not really sort of totally secure in this just yet, because he was just perhaps a fraction behind on his production. So that third will have to fall back just for the moment. The Archons, of course, quite powerful there. The Zealots with their +1 to armor and weapons, doing a good job cutting everything up. And
Yeah.
is this sort of that point whereas the Protoss... Alright, so... whoa. Actually, we've got Hellions inside the main as well. Totally didn't notice that. But a well-placed cannon helping out with that.
Just doesn't even matter. God damn it,
Well,
Hellions.
if Luxury literally did anything to micro those probes, he would have been perfectly fine. 1 cannon and a couple units should be able to hold 4 Hellions, no problem. And if he'd even been paying enough attention, he could have just force fielded his ramp. So that was a bit of a mistake by Luxury. But I just want you to notice, for the Terran players out there, how strong that 2 base timing was from that Protoss player. Despite it being a bad tech choice, despite Last Shadow having good SimCity, Blue Flame Hellions, Thors, Ghosts, that still broke the third and was pretty threatening. So if so, just a little advice: if you're going to play Bio against Protoss players and you have any sort of suspicion whatsoever that he might be going for this charge lot Archon timing, make supply depot walls at your third or even at your natural as if you were playing against a Zerg player. Hell, just do it every game anyway, because that's the only way you can hold this kind of push.
Mm. And as we saw
I
there,
really don't like
he tried to
like,
push up that ramp that had the Thors on it, but then also had the tanks at the back. The Zealots evaporated straight away.
it was just an awful decision that put Last Shadow in the position he really wants to be in, because he knows that Luxury's army is pretty weak now. He's going to be able to secure a fourth pretty easily once that command center finishes up. Like, Luxury could have accomplished the same thing just by having the Stalkers and Archons like walk towards the mineral line. He didn't need to sacrifice the 20 Zealots he did or whatever just to sort of deny this third. The decision to deny the third is sound, because, like I've mentioned a couple times now, you have to have more than 4 gases as a Terran Mech game player, or you're really going to be in kind of rough straits going into the late game. But he's just trading too much for it. It's hard to justify at this point.
Mm.
So maybe he's feeling a little bit desperate because he lost a bunch of workers, but really even it wasn't that bad.
Look at this very cute supply depot placement down at the bottom side of the map. He's got one on the what is normally the 5th base, and then another on the 4th base as well. So Luxury, I still feel as if he probably should have expanded like before this time. Even though his scout on the mech was a little bit late, he didn't actually get to his, as Omerta said earlier, his third was a lot later than it should have been. And even this 4th, like I think this 4th should have been up and running by now. If you scout that someone's on mech, you
Definitely.
really
There's
need
no
to
reason
expand. Yeah.
Like, what I would have liked to see from Luxury, and this is a very difficult call to make, especially because most people don't play mech. A lot of people don't have practice against it. But if your observer's that late and he runs into his base, you see 3 factories, just immediately expand again, or even double expand, and just cut production for 1 or 2 warp gate cycles in order to be able to afford it. Because that Terran player is he's not going to be moving out, especially if you know he's trying to take a third.
Yeah.
He's not going to move in for such a long time. You have the time to do that, and you have the time to take that advantage.
Yeah, I would do a third and like 2 forges, and then power up whatever your production.
Right, and and another note, like that cannon in the main was a great idea. No reason not to do that at the third as well, especially if if your army's going to be out, like aggressively postured like it is. You need to have that like cannon back there to defend against Hellions or Banshees. That you should at this point expect that to be coming.
Oh my
He
god,
just keeps
people.
losing so much stuff.
250 mil strike cannon. Ah!
The Templar just got strike cannon. Oh my god.
That's
What a massacre.
just a thing that should never occur.
It's like, you know what I want to see? I want to see him use the strike cannon on a probe. I just feel like, die, probe.
Okay, and
this isn't.
now what we're seeing once again is a maxed army against 150 supply, and he's able to once again add all these Thors because he hasn't seen a high robo count at all, and that's just like exactly what you want to be able to do. You want to, in all honesty, when you're meching, you want to build as few tanks as you can afford. Like you want to get that perfect amount, and then fill your supply with other things like Banshees, Ravens, Ghosts, Thors, Hellions. Because when you get that high Thor count, that's actually just so difficult to deal with.
Yeah.
Unless there's 10 immortals here. And yeah, I like this push out by Last Shadow, and I like the bringing a bunch of SCs with that. That's something you should always do as a Mech and Terran player. But I'm not as enamored with Luxury's decision to turn around and come back, or at least turn around with everything and come back, because he's gonna have a hard time cleaning this army up. Though he's doing a decent job anyway. Look how much damage these 3 immortals are putting out. Look how fast the Thors go down.
Yeah,
it's really pretty ridiculous.
I was gonna say there was like nine or more Thors there, and only about 4 immortals in total. With the Zealots tanking at the front, with the Stalkers doing a little bit of damage, plus a few feedbacks. It's not completely ridiculous to stop a Thor army at that point. It's once we get the ghosts in the mix, which where were they? What happened to the ghosts?
There was only a couple ghosts,
Oh,
and
okay.
that was again because he wasn't able to get to 6 gases quick
Right.
enough, and he had a pretty low tank count.
Okay.
He only had 4 tanks, I think, during that fight, and that's why he wasn't really able to deal with those immortals at all.
Yeah.
Though, to be perfectly honest, like, Last Shadow's still in a beautiful position. He traded, like, almost completely down with the armies, and that's okay when you have this big of a base advantage, and Luxury's still, he's mined out in his main, he's mining out soon in his nat, he only has really one solid base to lean back on, and he knows there's no, and because of this supply depot, for example, Last Shadow knows there's no other bases out, really.
Yep.
And so, in all honesty, if I was in I don't know, Merida, maybe you can talk about this. If I was in Luxury's position, I would have rather seen him try to base race than turn around and try to fight.
Yeah, well, I mean, he can't really,
You,
because
you said South Park guy. If you base trade against the Terran, you're gonna have a bad time.
Well,
Yeah.
if you walk into siege lines and door lines, you're gonna have a bad time.
Yeah.
There's no way he's defending that fourth.
yeah,
So at the very
Yeah, that's
least,
true.
send a handful of zealots up to kill that, planetary fortress before it finishes morphing, or go into the third, or just blink into the main and get into the production. Like, you have to do something to make up for the fact that you're losing a fourth and trading your army
Yep.
for not any
Yeah.
real gain.
Well, he was
Now-
really far behind at that point anyway, honestly. That is kind of a desperation move to try and kill off the army, but he was so far behind that couldn't really do it anyway.
Omoda, how do you
Now,
feel
one thing-
about getting immortals, but then only having one robo?
I don't think you'll be able to
I
get
don't-
enough.
No, you won't. I like to
I
get
think you
3.
want 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like 3. I like cutting like basically all of my gateway production for a while I take my third, and then once my third is pretty saturated, then I'll get Twilight Council. Or actually, I'll get Twilight for upgrades, but then I'll get the Twilight upgrades and start powering up gateways.
Yeah.
I
Now,
don't
here's
because
why-
you need like a critical mass.
Here's
of
why people think
Immortal.
Mech is bad, right? Look at the supply count right now. Despite all that, Luxury's ahead because Mech units take approximately 12 years to build, and you have a
Yeah.
really hard time affording them anyway. Like, to be perfectly honest, Last Shadow should have more factories by now. But sitting on 4 factories, just look how long it takes him to rebuild this army.
Yep.
So I don't know why he would attack into that like that.
Yeah, that was just
Uh,
a bit scary.
Luxury's
With
just doing his best effort to throw this game.
on
But,
on that topic of rebuilding, do you guys feel it's better to try and chip away at the army, sort of to downsize it as much as you can in situations where you can, or is it just better to get the perfect composition, i.e., a couple of colossi, maybe a lot of immortals, some archons, and some zealots on the ground, a very low sort of stalker count because they're kind of useless, and then go for the push, or is it, as I said, better to get sort of chip away at it?
I think part of the strength of Mech is that you can't really chip away at it. It's gonna cost you so much more to commit to an engagement to kill anything that Mech has because of siege tanks and ghosts.
Yep.
Than you can really afford. So what you really want to do with Mech is you want to draw it out of position, and then just crush as much of it as you can. And when you get to that phase where you're rebuilding, like we kind of saw before, Luxury decided to just throw away half his army. You can just get ahead, just even if you're down bases. There's a good chance you're going to be even or even ahead in supply just because of the way Gateway works versus factory build times.
Yep.
However, like Last Shadow's still in an okay. This is still a comfortable position. Like you have a 5-base Terran, and he's going. And I really like this decision to go for the islands. The island here.
Yep.
Not so much with an orbital. I think, to be perfectly honest, what you want to do, like on this map, this is a good map for Mech because if you take these islands, put a planetary and a turret ring, like what the fuck is the Protoss player gonna do about it? That's just your island now. You can plant a flag on it. There's no way he's taking that. And if you do that on both the islands, then you have 7 bases and there's nothing he can do except attack into your siege line.
Yep.
So I would like to see that. more than just kind of getting an orbital over there. But that's a bit of a commitment. Though one of the nice things about Mech is you can afford to just send a Banshee over there and kill those rocks or something like that.
Yeah. Or even a Viking. Like if you got a Viking out as we mentioned before, try and deny, what was it, observers or something? Oh, the Phoenix. If there was an early Phoenix to try and use that as a counter against Banshees, you could send the Viking over. It'll take like 10 years to knock the rocks down, but you'll still get it eventually. So,
yep.
Something to
Okay, and
consider.
what we're seeing now, if you pull up the you already have the production tab pulled up. What we're seeing right now is the end game of Mech. Adding orbitals so you can sacrifice SCVs. I would really like to see a couple planetaries down these chokes. And what he's going to do is he's going to start throwing away Hellions, throwing away SCVs, maybe even some Thors or Banshees, and he's going to start pumping battle cruisers. Because late game battle cruisers with some tanks or Thor support plus ghosts will actually just win you the game. Like there's so
OP. Fucking
very,
OP as
very
shit.
It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
hearing that
I mean, yet
those Protoss blinds, there's very little you can actually do against that as a Protoss player.
People
Of course,
think
it takes 30 minutes to get to.
people think that
yes.
this is the thing that really pisses me off, right? People think that void rays are a counter to battle cruisers, and it's kind of like,
Man.
really? Like Blizzard says that in their shitty little tooltip thing, but have you really tried to go against battle cruisers with void rays? It doesn't actually happen. You'll get absolutely massacred. Oh well, yeah, I know, but
in that case, they're pretty good.
yeah, they'll do all right there, but I still think that even with upgrades, battle cruisers would have, a good time against void rays, even when they get a bit charged. But
And even Stalkers, to be honest, are not nearly as bad as you think against BCs. Like lots of Blink Stalkers will really chip BCs pretty. See, that's why you need the tank support when you're going BCs most of the time.
I
Unless
think
you have,
I think
how many
Ghost is
Thors
enough.
do we have right now? Jesus. Unless you have 20 Thors, then maybe you don't need as many tanks.
Yeah,
that's
20 Thors is kind of cool.
20 Thors.
So this
And the other
this
thing
fifth
you
base was
really
denied
want
for
from
quite a
BCs is
while.
You want upgrades. You do want 3-3, or you can kind of lose. And just oh well, here we go. That blink just is something that needed to happen like 20 minutes ago for the last 20 minutes.
And like, did you see the one Thor? The one Thor getting shot at by like 9 Blink Stalkers, and nothing was happening. It's ridiculous.
What do you mean nothing is happening? It's dead.
He finally killed it, but
It takes like 40 minutes for that Thor to be produced, and it's got 3 armor.
hey man, it's 60 in-game seconds.
But anyway, fuck, I lost my train of thought. What was I talking about? Oh, some small critiques of Last Shadow's play here. He's actually playing really risky. He's kind of lucky that Luxury, just decided not to do anything annoying.
Yeah.
But you should, especially by this time, he's had so much money built up. Like, he had, 2K a little while ago. You should, literally have just a ring of turrets on the exterior of the land you control, basically. Like, the main should be ringed with turrets facing outwards. The 12 o'clock should be ringed with turrets. There should be... Oh, there's finally looks like a planetary going up below the 4th. But there should have been, 2-3 planetaries up a long time ago. And once you get that up, that's when you can just really start rampaging. Like, come on, you have 19 Thors! I know you want to attack with them, man. If you have a couple planetaries and some turrets, you can go do that.
Hey man, it's like playing LOL or Dota when you're clearly in the lead and you can destroy the other team. I gotta farm up for another 20 minutes, man.
Bullshit Stalkers just sniping a BC like it was nothing.
Nice.
See?
Heroes.
Stalkers are not bad.
Well,
But anyway,
hold on.
Whoa!
3-3 BC Ghost, not 3-3 Stalkers against 1-0 BCs.
Yeah, but what's more likely to occur, right? It's 3-3
Yes,
Stalkers. But,
that's true.
And you can have them at like the 13-minute mark, because fuck Chrono. But losing these just like this is not super stellar. But see how effective this is? It's like pulling him, away from important locations. Like you could be blinking up into the 4th right now. You could be blinking into the main again. Like this kind of stalker harassment is something that a good player with high enough multitask and APM should have literally been doing for the last 25 minutes.
Yep.
Like that. In fact, there's been nothing that has stopped this to this point. Like there hasn't been turrets up the whole time. There hasn't been another. Oh god, the storms. There hasn't been another
awesome storms.
Sensor tower in the main to see it coming ahead of time. There hasn't been planetaries up this whole time. If you're a Protoss player and you're going into the mid or late game against a meching Terran, do this kind of stuff. Like it's so good, it's so annoying to deal with. Like you will fluster a Terran trying to walk these slow, gigantic units up and down ramps to just chase around a bunch of blink stalkers. And then when they get there, you're probably going to lose one of them anyway, because wall stalkers do a lot of damage. Like it's the most annoying thing in the world, and it's really effective. And it really, you don't chip down the mech army. You chip down his infrastructure and his bases. That's when you need things like those blink stalkers.
Right.
Because at that one point, Luxury cleans up the army but loses his 4th. Right. Imagine if he cleaned up his army and cleaned up the army but lost the 4th, but also like 2 or 3 of the factories had been killed. And instead of having like a 30 supply lead in a little while, he would have had like a 50 or 60 supply lead. Because it takes a long time to rebuild that factory and then start that unit production over and over again. So that's what you want to be doing. That's like the most of the time when people say like, "Oh, mech is just bad," I want to disagree with them, because it like not enough people mech. But on the other hand, like imagine Bisu like fighting mech. Like how could Bisu lose to mech? He would just be all over the map the whole time with these blink stalkers. And I don't see how a meching player could really deal with it. A really good player with good enough. Not saying Luxury's bad or anything like that, but like a really good player with dedicating his multitask to doing this kind of thing. I just don't see how it's gonna get stopped.
Just
Keep how fast the Thors and shit die just because they've been feedback once. It's actually really good. Mech units aren't invincible.
Well, at this point in the game, an important thing to keep in mind is that any early disadvantages that Luxury has had have been completely negated. So the game is pretty much even at this point. So it's all going to come down to like if he can get a good unit composition, which he's got like 30 open supply right now. I'm not sure what he's doing. Still only has 1 robo. Don't like that. No Stargates.
He's
There's the one difference.
Yeah.
Between mech and bio. The biggest difference late game is you are 100% okay with with being on even terms. And that's why mech is appealing to a lot of players, because if you're going by, you kind of need to be ahead or in some sort of advantageous situation. Oh my god, what are you just sacrificing some units for? But when you're meching, like if you get all your tech and you get all your upgrades, you're 100% okay being maxed versus maxed, on equal footing or even a little behind, because you are just going to do a death push at one point.
Are you trying to say that the way to play late game TvP is to go mech? Because you're actually even? Like I know a lot of the Terran players will say late game against Protoss, because the Protoss will have 600 Colossi and all these other units and all this crap. It can't actually be stopped. Is that like with bio at least, with a standard bio? Is this a better way to do it?
So look at this army. It's 17 Thors, 10 battle cruisers, 5 ghosts, and 2 ravens, basically. Like you can't tell me that's not better than a bunch of marines and marauders.
Yep.
As far as like straighting, like it really is better. The problem people have with mech is that it's so much harder to get to this situation.
Yep.
Than it is with bio. Like you can very easily outplay somebody with bio during the whole course of the game, because it's very mobile. It's as far as decision making goes, it's easier to play. I'm not going to say it's like really particularly easy, but there isn't as much intense decision making that goes into bio as there is mech. Because like for example, if you push with mech at a bad time, you've just lost the game. If you push with bio at a bad time, you stim and run away. So
Yeah.
it is definitely just like miles away harder to play Mech and to get into a winning situation with Mech than it is to play Bio. That's the big problem people have with Mech, and I don't think it's difficult to make an argument against someone saying that against a really good Protoss player, this should never occur.
Yep.
This kind of army should never be able to be gotten to against like a really top level Protoss player. And I don't know if I could necessarily argue against that. But man, when you get it, it is glorious. See how fast that BC is now?
Dude, it's 1 BC against 20 stalkers, dude. Come on.
Yeah, and it got like shot. I'm just saying that, like, okay, the
You're gonna
Protoss
tell me
player
this
has
army is not gonna get obliterated? Come on.
I'm just saying the Protoss player has 8,000 minerals.
Yeah. Well, he's got like 50 gateways. He's gonna.
He actually has about 50
So-
gateways.
He has 50 gateways, and he's not fighting anywhere near a pylon. Like, he could literally stay maxed the entire fight. This is when you chip away at a mech arm.
Yeah.
Like, he could just feedback and be maxed literally this entire fight. But he's not, because he doesn't, I don't know. I guess he doesn't know what to do in this situation.
Yeah.
But, like, you have 7,000, almost 8,000 minerals, man, you gotta fucking go nuts with that. Abuse the fact that you can just build gateways and not need to use them.
Yeah, and I think, as you said, this is that death march with the Thors and the battle cruisers. As we can see, they've got the high ground now, so it's not as if the Stalkers will be able to easily get in position here. And with those Ravens up the top, he's also, of course, got point defense drones, and things are looking quite glum here for luxury. I think another thing that I just thought about, it's not actually a huge deal, but oh, hang on, let's just watch this battle. We got the Stalkers just sort of bouncing around trying to get on top of the Stalkers and everything, of the Thors, and there you go, GG. What I was going to say was, a lot of times, like in some things that I see in StarCraft 2, the ways that things are counted are sort of counted in a way that was done in StarCraft 1, but the way to counter this sort of mech army like this is not the way you would do it in Brood War. In Brood War, if you said, get a heap of, and that's obviously based on the fact that the way the units work are different, like you don't have Thors or anything like that, but it was a little bit different in the way that you would control your army to try and take down a meching army from a Terran, so that's something also to consider. Perhaps when the Brood War guys come across, they might be able to think of something different. But
well, a big part of that is there's no arbiter in this game, so that ability to just like the arbiter's basically a mothership now, right? Like that's
right.
The thing. That's the version they have in this, and a mothership in this situation would have been pretty great. I mean, it's gonna get fucking massively Yamato.
It's pretty hard to land an EMP on a mothership, man. Motherships are so small, like the EMP is very difficult to land on.
I'm pretty sure you can vortex from outside of EMP range.
No,
can't.
no, you
Vortex
can't.
actually has a pretty short range.
Vortex-
I'm pretty sure the edge of the vortex is gonna land. Anyway, you don't even.
Dude, have you tried to cast a vortex lately?
There's a 0% chance you can land a vortex on this army.
It's
0, unless the Terran falls asleep.
First of all, you've let a Terran player get 20 Thors and 12 BCs and Ghosts.
3/3 BCs.
All I can say is I've gotten to this point against the Terran. I've gotten to this point against the Terran and had like 20 carriers, a mothership, and like 10 Templar, and lose the fight. I've had a similar army.
I think honestly, a carrier army is a much better army. In Templar, like if you land any feedbacks, like you want to be feedback species so they can't get Yamatos off.
You can't, man.
You definitely can. You can. You're gonna have some for Templar, then he'll have ghosts. You're ridiculous. And his army isn't mobile at all. You can force him into like bad situations.
It is very difficult.
And another thing about this is that army can you can actually you can storm that army and do a lot of damage to it. You can afford to do that. He can't repair
Yes.
if you're storming the shit out of his stuff.
Mm.
Like, look at how Nesty deals with mass Thors, right? He fucking shoves Banelings into him. You can AoE mech. You can storm mech armies now. You really can. It costs a lot. It takes a long time, but you can do it.
It's like I could just
The part
imagine
is-
someone just like, come on, keep going. All right. Storm number 50. Let's go. All right, cool. The stuff's
Seriously,
nearly
it's gonna
dead.
it will take something like that, but if you kill that or soften it up enough to crush it, you've won the game. There's no way a Terran player comes back from that.
Yeah. So we're
And
saying,
to be perfectly honest, like, Luxury had plenty of opportunities to win this game.
yeah,
Even when he lost his fort, he had opportunities to win this game.
yeah. So my thoughts on this particular game, some random things which occur to me. I really don't like that he got a warp prism, went across the top island, and then decided to just not take it. Like, I mean, it's not exactly a hard thing to sort of just put down your nexus, put down like 4 pylons around the place, and get some cannons up for some basic defense. You obviously don't have to spend, you don't have to make like 700 cannons if you don't want to, if you don't have the economy for it. But I mean, he went past it. I think he went past it twice and saw that Last Shadow wasn't there. So I found that really weird. Also, as Omerta said earlier, getting the 3rd really, really late compared to when it should have been, and then the 4th as well. The 5th was delayed by a heap because of a supply depot there, then a Banshee that also came down and killed the probe that was going to get the Nexus up. And yeah, so the same sort of symptoms as the previous game, where we had the player slow to expand. He suffered a couple of Banshee attacks down at his 3rd, once the 3rd was finally up, and then just sort of let it go the whole game. Like, I mean, I know it's extremely small to think about and just very minor in the context of the whole game, but his +3 shields only sort of just kicked in, like, I think it was about 5 minutes ago. I mean, you play a 40-minute game and your opponent is meching. Why have you only just gotten your +3 shields now? Not to mention the fact that shields apply to the buildings, number one, and shields also apply to the carriers, which should be like your sort of end game unit. I would probably think from experience that the carriers would be one of the better end game units, as we've said before.
I don't think they do well at all, to be completely honest.
As I said in the last game, I think playing against Mech is very strategic positioning based. Like, how you deal with things will be very dependent on where you put things, how you engage the army. Like, his main battle up here, just sort of near this big, whatever the hell that is, I think it's a marine statue here. That was the dumbest place you could ever engage, like, in the history of Starcraft. Why would you engage in a position where Stalkers can't blink properly under the BCs? You've got your army getting segmented because of this statue thing in the middle, and all that sort of thing. Just, like, I think that's how you need to play. It's just to be very careful with where you engage and how you engage and where units are positioned.
Yep.
Omerta, your thoughts on the whole game?
I don't think making a lot of gateway units is very good against Mech at all. I think you kind of got to match their power with power. If you do want to go gateway, you need a nice task force of Blink Stalkers just running around the map for the entire game, like Dave was talking about, just hitting any weaknesses that you can and forcing the Terran to kind of stay home. And then back home you should be teching up to like either Stargate or a bunch of Immortals. So, and honestly, what Luxury did here when he went for that gateway timing early, I think that's the only time like a gateway based style will work, is if you just go and try and crash into them and kill them before they get a critical amount of mech units out. But once they have that critical amount out, you're just kind of dead.
Yep. Wigan, final thoughts?
Well, like you guys mentioned about positioning, the biggest thing to take away from mech games is positioning is everything. That's why we say things like you need to, blink into the main, do things like that, be aggressive, pull him into areas of the map he doesn't want to be, and make him run around. Positioning is absolutely everything. Even in the best circumstances as a meching player, if you are caught in a bad position, you can still lose the fight. If you lose the fight convincingly, you lose the game. So be patient on both sides of a game where Mech is involved. Be patient and take little advantages and snowball that into a big win. And like Alan said, don't mask gateway units against Mech. It's bad.
Yep.
Use tech, use power, use robo, use Stargate. Don't be afraid to get carriers and shit. Should be a fun
Carriers are
like
bad.
late Mech is fun. Late game, like you should see ridiculous fights like that Rain versus Boxer, like Star Wars battle at MLG that everyone's seen. Like Mech versus Mech, Mech late game should lead to ridiculous fights. You should be able to get 46 minutes into a game. You should literally have anything you want, unless something's gone horribly wrong. So abuse that ability.
Okay. Alright, well that will do our little Mech for TvP session. Hopefully everyone enjoyed and learnt something as well. I think we learnt key things being expand as much as you can as a Protoss, don't go mass gateway, look to get a lot of robo and or carriers depending on what your situation is, and don't be afraid to expand. I think that's one thing that both of these Protoss players had an issue with, was actually just expanding. As a Terran player, of course, as Wigan said multiple times, you want to look for a minor amount of tanks. You want to look for the smallest amount you can get away with, while still being protected against things like blink stalkers and such. And also, turret rings, a big thing. Make sure once you start moving out, make sure you get some turrets down to protect your bases from things such as War Prism attacks, blink stalkers jumping in with an observer giving line of sight. And hopefully everyone had some fun with that. Just before we go, of course, we've got Code S round of 8 this week. I just wanted to quickly go through just like really quick predictions. We've got Naniwa versus MVP. Wigan?
I think unless Naniwa fucks up pretty bad and MVP brings his A game that he just hasn't had recently, Naniwa's probably going to win that series.
Omerta?
Is it best of 5 at this point?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, 3-1.
Yep. And I was talking to Dave earlier. The first 2 maps for Naniwa, Cloud Kingdom and Entombed, are really good maps for PvT.
Yep.
So I think he's got a really good chance to jump out to an early lead, and then he can just kind of throw a couple of all-ins in there and
Pro
try
brushes,
and just
yeah.
get a free win.
Yep.
Yeah, just like the 7 gate or something.
Cool. Parting versus Oz.
I fucking hate PvP. I hate that matchup.
A month ago, I would have said Oz, because Oz has been very good against Protoss for a little while.
Yep.
But I think Parting's just playing better in general right now, so I would probably pick. I'm not really super familiar with
Me neither.
with Parting's PvP, but Oz has been doing some weird stuff lately, and I think Parting's just playing a little bit better right now. So I'll take Parting.
Yeah,
Probably.
I think-
Be pretty close though.
Yep.
Yeah, I think Parting's the better microer of the two, and PvP is an extremely micro-based matchup.
That was amazing last week.
Yeah,
The other matchups, we got Supernova versus Hero. Starting off with Entombed, Metropolis, Atlantis, Ohana, Cloud Kingdom.
well, Hero is clearly the best player in the world.
That's
and
true.
He'll win 3-0.
That's true.
No bias at all.
I want to say Hero, and I think Hero's a better overall player, but Supernova's been playing really well against Protoss lately, and he throws in a lot of strange builds and and weird all-ins. He's kind of like Genius, as far as Genius is to Protoss, but Supernova is to Terran, kind of. And that Genius just doesn't give a shit about the metagame and throws his own stuff in there.
Yep.
Supernova kind of does that a lot too, so I wouldn't be super shocked if Supernova won that one. I think I'll still pick Hero, but that's the least sure I am out of any of them.
Well, the next one is Taja versus Squirtle.
I'm gonna take Tasia, and that again, that's another one that's kind of close, but I'm going to take Tage. I think one Terran has to advance. It wouldn't be a GSL without Terrans going on.
Omota?
Squirtle's playing so good lately, though, but Tage is one of the best Terrans in the world. So.
If Tasia can figure out a way to stop two base Colossus all-ins, I think he'll win the series pretty easily.
That's what I was going to say, yeah.
Squirtle's playing so good, yeah. Just likes Colossi and then moves them to the other opponent's base without losing them.
That's what he does.
Games.
That's how he wins.
That's how he wins. That's the way to do it.
Yeah, he's got. I mean, there's a week to get ready for one matchup though, and it's a best of 5. So people are gonna have to bring a lot of different stuff to the table. Like I have to feel like Tasia's gonna be prepared for that.
Yep.
Okay. And of course, shout outs for you guys, Omota.
Follow me on Twitter, bro. That's really it. I don't have a lot of shout outs. Thanks for having me on the show again, dude. I have a lot of fun doing it.
It's fun.
Especially listening to Dave get just so excited talking about Mech. he gets a little excited.
I enjoy it a little bit.
Wigan?
Follow me on Twitter at MLG_Wigan. Leave me feedback on there, whatever. And follow me because I stream a lot. Like ranked League of Legends, CSGO, Tribes, and of course Starcraft 2. And we usually have a pretty good time, like interacting with people. So follow me on Twitter so you can watch me on stream.
Alrighty. Of course, for me, at DUCKVILLELOL, jump on youtube.com/DUCKVILLELOL as well. Also, have a look at the Facebook page, facebook.com/DUCKVILLELOLSC2. And you can find out any cool stuff on there. Trying to get more people on that just because of certain reasons, and also to do with competitions that may or may not be coming up on there. Going to be doing it through there because it's easier than Twitter. Yeah, okay. We'll sign out. I will direct you all to jump on a particular stream. We'll pick a random stream. Avillo is actually streaming right now. That is on, I believe it's twitch.tv. Oh, wait, maybe it's not. Sorry, hang on, let me refresh. Oh, yeah, he is streaming. Avillo, for the Terrans, for the Protoss, go see Cecil Suncure. He's a guy who does some really cool builds for the Protoss. Yes, he does. He's very good. He's got one of those blue background thingies on Team Liquid because he does really good high-quality posts. And for the Zergs, I don't know any one of the non-featured people that are streaming. However, let's pick a random person and say...
Hold on, I'm sure I can recognize one of these nerds.
Of the non-featured. Make sure it's the non-featured.
Yeah. Well, no, I actually can't.
I didn't think so.
What the hell?
Alright, Macro Zerg. Go and have a look at Macro Zerg if you're a Zerg. Say hi to Macro
Nursky.
Zerg.
How about Nursky?
Oh, is he?
Nursky's not featured. He's streaming right now.
Oh, there you go. Alright, go have a look at Nursky as well. Say hello. Tell him that Late Night IMBA Discussion sent you. And we will sign out until next week. We're probably going to stick around this same sort of time as well. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you next time.